Welcome back to the Fear and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies, and just a little bit of beer.
So kill the lights, grab a cold one, and join us as we dive into this mad world we love.
I'm Nick.
I'm Seamus.
And I'm Jamie.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You miss me.
Aren't you drinking?
I never drink. Why?
And as a reminder to all listening, if you want to help us to continue growing as a podcast, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on whichever streaming platform you use.
To stay up to date with us and all of our episodes, be sure to follow all of our socials. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Fear and Beer Pod.
Feel free to reach out to us. We love to interact with you all.
Day 2 of our 1 week until HHN Podathon. We're in the final stretch, folks. We are in the final stretch. There's only 6 days left until we get to go to the event that we all know and love. We get to huff the fog, drink the beers, and eat a copious amount of fried food that is going to undeniably destroy our stomachs. And I cannot wait. And just how are you going to do that, you might ask yourself? Well, we'll let you know how, because this is our How to HHN episode, sort of catered towards this year. We've done in the past a beginner's guide to HHN, I believe either last year or the year before. So we're going to sort of do an abridged version of that. We're going to walk you through, how we do HHN, whether that's, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's how we're going to attack it this year. So we're going to give you a couple different methods that we use to get as much stuff done during the Halloween Horror Nights night that you're going, or if it's multi-night, we're going to discuss that as well. So we're going to go through Stay and Scream. We're going to go through the late night method, which is a personal favorite of mine. We're going to go through, multi-night, single night, and then we're going to hit you at the very end with some stuff that you guys were asking for. We did it last year as its own episode, and it wasn't as long as we expected. So we figured we'd tack it on to this episode because I think it fits. And that is our over or under wait time guesses, where I'll present a number, a minute value that I think might be fair for that house. And we're going to open the floor to debate and see if that's kind of what we agree on as a consensus. And then Jamie's going to walk us through all the houses, and we're going to give you our predictions of if they're going to either underperform or overachieve. So that's how we're gonna that's how we're gonna do it tonight. Again, we're in the middle of our 1 week podathon, and we're recording these at random times, so we don't really have beers on certain ones. So you might have a special one on tomorrow's episode that was pretty tasty that I remember, but not to peel the curtain back too much. But yes, these are all recorded in random times beforehand. We're not crazy enough to record these ones. Yeah, we don't record these ones the night before like our normal episodes. This one takes a little bit more planning, so that way we don't, go zombie mode on opening day of Horror Nights, because that just would not be fun for anybody. No. So, welcome everybody. Obviously, Seamus and Jamie are with us. It's not just me, but I will kick us off. So I'm going to at first discuss, I don't know why I put myself first after I do the little intros. I don't know. I just love hearing myself talk, apparently. But okay. I'm gonna go over the Stay and Scream method, because that is something that I use as often as I can, when work allows. If I'm off work that day and I can get to the park earlier, I will do so. Now, there's 2 ways to do this, or 3 days. Technically, if you do not have a Universal Orlando pass, you can purchase a Scream Early Pass. This year, they're $55. It took a pretty steep hike from last year, because I think it does. They know the value there. They're trying to push you to say, hey, the Scream Early Pass is $55. An actual daytime admission might only be $100. So for an extra $50, do I just buy that and go to the park a little bit too? That's for you to decide. But the Scream Early Pass allows you entrance to the park from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Now, typically, I aim to get at Stay and Scream at least by 4 o'clock, just to be safe, because they'll start kind of scanning you in. And I'm going to go over the different locations as well, but they'll scan you into a holding area. I refer to them as holding pens, essentially, because you're treated as such in those little metal queue lines. But that'll give you the ability to get a jump start on things. Now, like I said, you can get the Scream Early Pass, but if you also have a daytime admission already, or if you have a universal annual pass, this is included. You don't have to purchase the Scream Early Pass. You already kind of have that because essentially it's just park admission. If you have those passes, you just you can go really whenever. You don't have to go at 3. On opening weekend, I am like a kid on Christmas morning. I get to the park at like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, like way earlier than I need to be just because I want to be. Um, but yeah, so there's multiple holding areas. They haven't announced as of yet which houses are where, and but we can kind of guess a little bit. Now the typical holding areas, and I'm basing these off of last year, is New York, which is sort of in that Finnegan's area. You would check in last year at the very end, almost on that boardwalk area by Fast and Furious. You would check into New York there, over by, I'm so bad with places names, but the Italian restaurant or that place
Louis.
is Louis. Yeah, you scan in there. So you'll scan in with your Horror Nights pass, and you will get put into this area that's pretty barricaded off, so you can't get in or out. But you have all of New York to roam around. You can go into Finnegan's and kind of hang and grab some drinks and stuff like that. And last year, I believe it was like Stranger Things and Dueling Dragons you could start lining up for ahead of time. And last year, I believe they typically opened those houses from 5:15 to 5:30, depending on how crazy it is. Stranger Things they knew was going to be a big draw, so they would open it up earlier. Whereas the typical daytime or the typical HHN doesn't open until 6:30. So you're getting a very big jump. Even if you wait an hour in line, you're coming out probably before people are even getting into the park. So you get a good jump there. Now I'm gonna guess that this year they might do 3 houses up there starting early, being Insidious, Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, and A Quiet Place, because those are, I believe, the houses that are up in that area. So I would assume that those will be some sort of variation of that for your New York Stay and Scream. Now, the other one is in towards the back. It's the Central Park, Simpsons style area. I believe you check in over where the Sensational entrance is, over by where the Lagoon show is. I didn't do it last year, I don't think. I did it the year before. But last year it was, I believe, like Last of Us because we had the parade warehouses. But this year, I'm going to assume that they're going to allow the Museum Deadly Exhibits and Slaughter Cinema 2 to be opened up early. Typically, those are a little bit later, around 5:45, because they're not as popular as the New York holding zones. But I mean, this year they might swap times up a little bit too, because I think the HHN fans are going to be more in that area, so they can get to those two, because those seem to be hot commodities in the community. And then finally, there's the San Francisco little Stay and Scream area, smaller one. And I'm assuming that if they do that one this year, obviously you're going to lead right into Suites. I definitely did not do that one last year. I think it was Lombard's is that kind of holding pen area. They did 3. So maybe you get a jump start on Suites. Might be a little bit of a later open time as well. But again, the gates open up front at 6:30. So if you can use this Stay and Scream method, for me, and I'll open the floor up in a moment, but for me, this is the way to go if you're able to get there. There's still people there. You're still going to wait. And I know some of the other people are like, well, if I'm going at 4 o'clock and I don't get into Stranger Things till like 6 o'clock, like I just waited 2 hours. Like, yes, you did wait that long, but you're getting out of that house before the front is even opened. And that can get you right into line for something that might be opening at like 6. I think last year they would open up Yeti a little bit earlier, or you can hop into the Dragons line and you can get those 2 houses like bang, bang, done. And by the time you're out, people are still coming in. 6:30 isn't really a super bum rush up front. So you can still skirt around until around 8 o'clock, just picking houses out. But that's kind of my attack for Stay and Scream. Do either of you have any other input on Stay and Scream that you kind of enjoy about this? Or
I like it. I really enjoy Stay and Scream, honestly. I think it's really worth it, especially if you do have a pass. And then it does kind of suck that because I think it was only like $30 last year. and it went up
Yeah,
to 55.
around there.
So it is a little bit of a hike, but I agree with Nick. I do think it's worth it because honestly, in that time frame, you could easily knock out at least 2, possibly 3 houses in that timing before gates actually open. And even sometimes with like if you're starting more at the front of the park or in the middle of the park, you can hit one of those back houses that maybe a lot of people got done already out of the way. And like you said, when they're opening up a little bit later, if they open up early, sometimes just hit those and get 2 knocked out of the way for some of the originals or something with a little less of a weight than how A Quiet Place will probably be or Insidious or something for opening night.
Yeah. No, agreed. I would recommend this as well. I don't think any of us are going to be have a different opinion on it. It's nice because you're avoiding the initial traffic of getting into the theme park because obviously they close it off. They make everybody that isn't HHN ticket holders leave, which can be a pain sometimes, as we've seen before in the past, especially when it's raining. It's hard to get people to like get
Yeah.
out,
Oh
like
my God.
leave.
They're like, get out. It's pouring. It's like, I don't care. Leave.
Yeah, well, you see all those people standing out here in the rain, like waiting to get into the house. You leave. You need to leave. But either way, I think even for $55, it's not bad. It's a good deal, especially if you have the time, because if you're coming in for it, maybe even for a day or two, you're probably planning on doing nothing but Horror Nights. So I don't see the harm in being there early or as they open it, because you're already ahead of a bunch of people, and like Nick said, like you can get the first couple big houses out of the way and then have the rest of the night to do everything else. So I think it's worth it even at the $55 price point now, even if it was cheaper last year.
Yeah.
And I'm not as go ahead, Nick, sorry.
I'll say just a little add on to something we're not really hitting on too much is Express. Now, Express, obviously, I view it's kind of as a cheat code. So like, that kind of doesn't apply to a lot of this stuff. This is more just if you're trying to get through like one night without it. But if you're coming one night, I would expect you to have Express. If you do have Express, don't burn it out of the gate on Stay and Scream. Like I still suggest Stay and Scream, but don't use your Express right there because you can only use it on one house. Or sorry, you can only use it at each house once. So if you're going into one of these houses that has a very quick 45, whatever, like a Stay and Scream wait time is nothing crazy, don't use your Express right there because you might be able to tackle 11 or 12 houses if you double back and do those houses with your Express. So don't burn it. Don't waste it. But Jamie,
especially if you're in line initially for like the big heavy hitter, like last year would have been like Stranger Things. Don't waste it if you're waiting for Stranger Things from the moment Stay and Scream opens till the park opens for Horror Nights. Do just the normal wait, and then like Nick said, maybe come back in a couple hours and use your fast pass or whatever you want to call it, your express pass on that house again, and you can probably see it twice.
And I was just going to mention too that even with now, I feel like they're opening more houses earlier than or not earlier than usual, but more houses in general. They're opening up for Stay and Scream versus having them all open up at once. And I think with maybe whatever year, what year was it that they had Bugs 29?
The year before last, right?
So forget the year, but 31.
31. So when they had Bugs,
31.
for example, I think you were taking pictures in a scare zone, Nick, something like that, and I had wandered over there myself to do it while Stay and Scream was just opening, and I'm pretty sure it was a walk-on, and I was able to go like right in, and it's just like stuff like that too. Like some people are going to gravitate towards other houses, so there will be that one or two house that not as many people will be in. You probably could do a walk-on on it, honestly. So I think it's worth it.
Yeah, and like you said, some of those houses that aren't listed as like Stay and Scream houses, they might still open at like 6, like a little bit earlier. So like even if you want to hit a house that isn't technically opening at like 5:30 or whatever, go into Stay and Scream and just kind of hang around, let everybody go into the actual lines for the houses, and then once they kind of open the pens,
usually
and
says it on the app too.
Yeah, it'll tell you what time they open, but you could. Once they open the pens and they're like park is like fully HHN, you can go and hang by some of those houses that are opening at like 6 and just jump right in and be the first person. So you don't have to necessarily wait for a Stay and Scream house. You could go do any house, but it might not be opening right at like 5:15, 5:30, 5:45, whatever it may be. So you could be that first person, like you said you did with Bugs. That wasn't a Stay and Scream house, but it opened a little bit early and you could just walk right over there and be the first one over there.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty nice about it.
that's a good little method that we use. So Seamus, I'm going to kick it to you to kind of like talk about essentially the complete opposite. Instead of screaming early, you're screaming late.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably only a good idea for those that are, I don't want to say local, but generally it's good if you can stay late and basically close the event out for that night. So if you live in the area, or if you're staying on site, or if you're in a hotel somewhere close, because the park does open till 2 o'clock in the morning, so it will go from whatever 6:30 in the afternoon all the way till 2 in the morning. And if you're one of those that can power through and hang out all night and close it out, generally you can have a pretty good chance of getting through everything or almost everything in one night. And I know that sounds crazy because even on the busier nights, by the time it hits about 11:30 midnight, the general rush will start to kind of filter out at that point, and then it leaves you the last couple hours with not an empty park, but a pretty low key number of people. So then you end up finding that you can walk onto a house that was generally like an hour wait, more like, maybe an hour and a half ago. So like, for example, Nick is the king of this, is he'll wait until 1:55, 1:58, right before the park like closes, and he'll jump in line for Last of Us, and it's basically walk on, because for the majority of people that were in line, they've already gone through, and now at this hour there's maybe a few people trickling through. And the nice thing is that Horror Nights won't kick you out of line. So if like it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're still in line for something, they're gonna let you go through the house. So it's not like one of those things where if you wait till 2 and then you get in line for something, they'll make you leave. They'll let everybody get through, at least up until the last person that was in the line, and then eventually they'll stop letting people in. But yeah, it's worth it. Again, if you can do it, you can power through. I'm not one of those people. It's very hard for me to stay
Me
that
too.
late. I don't generally stay that late. I mean, there are times where I'll close it out with them, but more than once have I shown up and he's like, "Yeah, man, I was here till 2:30 last night. I closed it out. I was going to leave at 11, but then I ended up just closing it out because, like, one house turns into 7."
Yep.
But it's true. There have been nights where we've done every house and plus some, because if you can power through and stay till 2, especially if like you show up, let's say, I'm going to give it a couple hours, let the main crowd get in, do their thing. I'll show up at like 9:30. And then go from like 9:30, 10 o'clock till 2 in the morning, and I can get everything done. Which, again, for someone, and it works, especially if you're one of those that has like weird work hours. Maybe you work like a second shift type thing or whatever, and you want to go home, hang out for a little bit, take some time, or if you're on vacation and you just want to hang out in the hotel room for a few hours before you head out to the park, it's a good idea. Because if you're gonna do that, I would recommend staying till close, because you'll find that you get there and it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours for like the big IP. And then, by midnight you can walk on to pretty much everything. So keep that in mind, especially if you're coming in for more than one day. If you are coming in for one night, it might be worth doing, just because you can guarantee or almost guarantee yourself you'll get to do all the houses, but that can be a little bit harder, especially if you have to like get up and leave the next morning to go somewhere or go home or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's why it's open till 2. It's worth definitely doing a late night, and I'm sure Nick can give his exploits of that.
Yeah, I mean, I there's a little part of me that does feel bad for the characters that are still in there doing their thing, but like, even though I have people and gaps in front of me, I'm generally still not the last person. Like, there's still people coming in group. Like, unfortunately, these characters are going to be working those crazy hours regardless. It's kind of what they signed up for. They know that that's what's going to happen. And those late night runs, though, are the best, because you can create a little bit of a gap in between groups, so you can get like the full experience of these houses that way. And I don't know what my plan of attack will be for this year, because I don't know with the new tents. I don't know where that's going to like have us exiting. I don't know if all the 4 tents are going to have different exit routes. But yeah, last year, for a perfect example, once it hit like 1:45, I'd hit Oddfellow. It would drop me back out at that MIB bathroom. I would turn back around and go into Darkest Deal, and then that would kick me right back out in the same spot. And from there, I'd bang out Last of Us and then leave by ET. Like, it was just a perfect little bang, 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 and I'd get that all done within 25 minutes. Obviously, I'm kind of picking up the pace walking wise because there's a lot of ground to cover, but that's when the stuff really drops down. So for people that say you can't, maybe this is a future video idea for us for in the season, like stay and scream to closing out the night. Can you get all the houses done without Express?
I would say yes.
I'm in the firm belief that I can get that accomplished by just figuring out. You have to stay up to date on the app and like maybe don't waste 2 hours in one line and just go.
Yeah, I mean,
you got to play it smart.
You got to play it the right way. You can definitely do it. I would say maybe outside of like opening weekend, you can do it pretty much any night of the week, even Saturdays. Mm-hmm. That first night might be kind of hard. That first weekend might be kind of hard because it's usually the busiest weekend. But yeah, if you can stay and scream, or at least even just park open, if you can get there like front of the line at the gate and get in, even if you're not staying and screaming or whatever, and you just go hardcore from start to finish at 2:00 in the morning, you can definitely get through everything. You're not going to have a lot of time to like mosey around and check out different things. And you really gotta go house to house to house to house. But if that's a goal for you, like if you know, like, hey man, I'm going in for 2 days, I want to make sure I get every house done, you could easily do it in one night. And then the second night, kind of use that night as leisure night to like hang out, check the scare zones, grab some food and a drink. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you can definitely do it. So anyone tells you that you can't do it, I think maybe the way they attack it may not allow them to do it, but I'm telling you that there is a way to do it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for everyone, but for those that are hardcore
insane,
event goers,
like me,
or or just like it, because generally if you have a lot of nights, then obviously you don't have to worry about it because you can go multiple nights, but. Mm-hmm. If you feel like you need to do it in one, you can definitely do it. Plus, just to add to what Nick was saying before, as far as the scare actors go, what's nice about late night runs is that a lot of times the house monitors are cool. They're not like super like, hey, let's go. Like if it's late at night, not a lot of people, they're kind of okay if you hang back a little bit, slow up a little bit,
take your time,
put some space between you and the party ahead of you. And then it's actually a lot more fun because the scare actors kind of recognize that it's not as busy and they're more apt to be up in your face and give you a little bit more of an experience. And before, it's kind of just like going through the motions. Hit the trigger, go back in. Hit the trigger, go back in. So I think when it's not as when later at night when it's not as busy and there's less people going through, they're more apt to kind of like give you those cool runs. That's why that like, and again, as much as I don't like the house. When Monsters Legends Collide, later at night, those late runs, those scare actors are giving it everything they had. Even at like 1:30, you're still getting like solid work. So it's worth it when the crowds aren't as I want to say the crowd isn't big, but when like there's not as many people going through the house at that one time.
Yeah,
which is I would expect the night like that premium night this year. I expect it to kind of be like that all night long, which is why I'm kind of bummed I'm not going to it, but.
Yeah, it's definitely
that's a different discussion altogether,
right? It's definitely the way I choose, especially if you are. This is kind of something we'll touch on in a moment. But if you were to do a single night and you're like, I only have one night, and you do stay and scream and you do the end, just make sure you're stay and scream. Like pick the biggest house. Like last year, I would do Stranger Things, and then if you're doing stay and scream to close, Last of Us, I did it close. I'm not going to devote 2 hours per house, so 4 hours of my day in line for those 2 houses when I can knock Stranger Things out before it even really starts. And The Last of Us, bam, 150, I'm getting in line. Like that's it. Like, because like you said, once you're in line, they don't kick you out. They'll stop letting people in the line at 2, but if you're in that line by 2, you're getting through that house. So you can devote your time in between to all the other stuff versus really making sure that you're like, oh, Last of Us at 7:00. It's only 2 hours. Let's get in line. No, just wait. If you know you're going to stay till the end, just wait and do the big IP at the very last minute and do the other big IP at the very beginning. Everything in between is gravy. Like you can make it happen. But yeah, so those are kind of the two methods. Jamie, did you have any other thoughts on late night? I know you don't really see as much late night as I do because you're not,
I'm
you
a
value
sleepy
your
gal.
sleep.
I do.
Yeah,
I enjoy sleep very much.
you're normal and healthy.
But this goes for locals and or those who are staying at the hotel, like Nick had mentioned, for on Universal grounds or whatever. One of my things I like to do, take a little late night nap, get to HHN around 10 o'clock, and then 11, 12, 1, 2, 4 hours. You're there for 4 hours, nothing too crazy. Go, have your fun, hit all the houses, come home, ready to go back to bed again. It's great.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
usually my late night. HHN is probably getting there at like 10 o'clock after taking a power nap before, and then enjoying the rest of the night without having to worry about rushing or going straight after work or getting home, showering and leaving, blah, blah, blah. But like I said, this is because we have the leisure of being local, which is nice. But also, if you're staying at the hotel or somewhere near, it's not a bad idea either.
Yeah, if you're doing that sort of like half day late night, you're not going to hit all 10 obviously, but you can still, like I said, between
You can knock out
12:30
half.
and 2, you could get at least 4 or 5 houses like easily. So, if you show up and you're in the park at 10 p.m. and you're walking into those archways, like you can still accomplish a good amount. You're just going to have to really keep up to date on the app and make sure, you kind of have your wait times planned out and you can make it happen for sure. So those are kind of the two different methods to attack HHN. So let's kind of break it down night style. Like say somebody's coming for multiple nights, whether that's 2 or 3, or if they're coming from single nights, it's just kind of like a little bit what we talked about, but we'll kind of get to that a little bit more in depth in a minute. But Jamie, why don't you talk about like multi nights? Like would you, if just say 2 nights, for example, someone's coming for 2 nights, what would you do? Would you like Seamus offered the method of kind of like house, and then day 2 kind of relax, scare zone, show food, or would you be like big IP one day, big on IP the next day, a couple originals, show scares? Like, go walk us through how you would attack like 2 days of HHN back to
So
back.
if I was only going for 2 days HHN back to back, I would possibly buy. Actually, I think I would do this. I would get Stay and Scream for one of the 2 nights that I'd be going, probably for that first night, or you could do it the second night. Really up to you what you feel like doing if you don't want to go crazy on the second night. But I think it is nice because I would split it up into doing 5 houses one night, 5 houses the other night. The night that you have, excuse me, Stay and Scream, you could get at least 2 of those big IP houses done within that little time period that you have early on. Those already knock out 2 of your houses for the night. Get the other 3 done. Don't really have to worry as much. Personally, with how I am with Horror Nights, I feel like I'm very, very nonchalant. I like going with the flow with Horror Nights. I don't like to have to rush around. I wouldn't want to try and do all houses in one night because I feel like I wouldn't get to enjoy it in its full capacity, because I feel like as soon as we would get out of another house, we'd be rushing to check the time, see what the other thing is. And it does make more of the experience too when you get to go around in the scare zones and like explore a little bit, try some of the different food, try some of the different drinks, and just like hanging out there is nice too without having to worry about rushing. One thing I do have to say, though, is if you want to get everything done in those 2 nights, including the show does take out a little bit of time from your schedule, which is a good thing to note as well, because at least the show's what? I want to say at least 30 minutes. And then I would say, go ahead, Nick, sorry.
I would say yeah. I mean, the show's around 30 minutes, but
45?
the process of like getting there in time, getting
Yes.
out, I'd say
Yeah.
45 is a good
So
little
I was just going to say probably a good
time frame.
45-minute chunk, but the only bad thing with that is that it usually does fill up pretty quick and they do cap the line off. So I would probably get there. I think the last couple times that we had gone, we probably got there maybe 15 minutes ahead of time, and we were pretty good. We still got a spot. We were able to fit it in. They fit a lot of people in that little stadium, so I don't think it should be an issue with that. But I would probably recommend doing one of the earlier show times that they do have on one of the 2 nights that you go, only because you can get that out of the way, not have to worry about that. And then as well, because the late night show that they usually have, the last show of the night, usually gets pretty filled up pretty quick, and it's usually packed, and then by the end of the night you're kind of possibly ready to go after that. So I'm trying to think of what I haven't covered. So the show, the scare zones, the houses, what do you guys think? Do you guys have a different little anything else you would add to it? Because I think splitting it up in 5 and 5, getting Stay and Scream one night, getting 2 or possibly 3 of those big IPs out of the way in one night, doing the other night, still having enough time in between to get a little snack, a little drink, something like that, walk around a bit.
Yeah, I
I
think
wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, I don't typically go in with much of a plan. Like, I think the best laid plans usually don't follow whatever the phrase you're looking for is. But generally, it's kind of go in, try to hit a big one very like early. Like, say, hey, we haven't done Stranger Things yet, or we've done it, but we haven't done it in a while. Let's hit that first. Get through that early, and then have the rest of the night kind of just hit whatever ones happen to have good weights. Generally, like once you've done the houses 3 or 4 times, like we do, then it's kind of just like hit the ones you like that have the lowest weight is usually what happens. Or like Nick, wait until 1 o'clock and then hit the big ones, so that way the lines aren't really that bad. But yeah, I don't know. I agree with you. I think take it easy. I wouldn't personally. I don't like trying to hit everything in one night.
I don't
Unless
either.
we have to do that, but like generally we don't. I mean, if it's someone's coming into town that we know that hey doesn't get to do it very often, we're gonna go like for a night with them. It's like, all right, let's try to hit everything we can in one night so they can try to get through everything. But when it's the usual where it's just us and some people that we know that live in the area, it's you kind of just hang out and you do whatever you do, and you get through what you can and without killing yourself. It's a lot of walking, and especially when you get to my age, being on your feet for that long,
It is a lot of walking.
you got to find some time to stop and
Get
sit
yourself
down.
hydrated. A little
And we're so
twisted
popular
tater.
now that everybody stops to want to talk to us and stuff.
A pizza skull. Man, I can't wait.
Yeah, so shove a carnival hot dog
Pumpkin
into my face
donuts.
hole.
Pumpkin donies. Oh,
Some
man.
twisted taters. Yeah.
I can't wait, honestly. Go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
Are you going to have a twisted tater this year? Because I don't think you did last year.
So I didn't until I found out, I think it was Angel let us know that they had a secret
Salt and vinegar.
Salt and vinegar
right,
there
they
the
did have
whole
salt and vinegar.
goddamn time, and they didn't promote it. It wasn't on the sign, nothing. It was like secret. So I had like 3 or 4 within that last 2 days there. I was very upset. So
I like the
will
little
make
mushroom one they had.
You hate
I will make sure that I, on my very first time, will ask if they have
God,
that
my
if it's not on the menu. So we'll see. But I was gonna say the multi-night thing really depends to what your needs are, right? Are you like trying to go? Like, do you want to cram 25 houses into your 2 days? Because if you do the method we described, stay and scream all the way to close, like you can do it as long as you do it appropriately with those big IP draws you kind of bookend it with those big headliner houses. But if you are in that more casual, you want to get everything done, but you don't want to feel overwhelmed or stressed or anything like that, I would do what you were doing. I would suggest maybe doing either big IP on one night, other big IP on the other night, or try and do both big IPs one day and then maybe the show on the other day.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say too.
Yeah.
If you're doing
so you
Stay
can
and
kinda use
Scream one
that
day,
way.
I would do the show the opposite day that you're not doing it. So
and then if you want to do, it comes down to if you're going to do Stay and Scream both days or just one day, or if you want to do Stay and Scream till late night both times, but still not go at like a crazy pace. It's a long day hour wise, but if you're not killing yourself, you could still do 6-7 houses a day while still hitting the scare zones and trying all the food booths, and you can sneak a show in there too. So
for sure.
And what's good too is a good strategy is save the show for like middle of the night if you can. It gives you kind of a nice little break between walking a bunch, doing some houses, and then you have like about a 45 minute like block in there where you can just kind of sit, enjoy the show, and then go back to hitting more houses. Especially if you're gonna do the show, don't do it early. Like I would suggest don't do it immediately. Wait, because I think the biggest rush for it tends to happen earlier in the night. It's usually pretty busy anyways.
The first or the last one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and be there early. If you're gonna do the show, try to plan to be there like 25 minutes before it starts, because it's always crazy and it's like first come first serve. So you might be in line last second and then you get cut off, and then you're better off either coming back another night or waiting till a later show and just kind of hanging out and waiting in the area, because it does get kind of crazy to get into it.
Yeah, and it depends too. I would say your party size would kind of dictate the show aspect to it, because
right, if it's just like one person.
Yeah, while we're still talking multi-night and you're not going crazy, showing up on time is a good option to make sure you're locked in. But that's a good segue into Seamus. I'm going to have you handle like what you do for a single night, and I'll just bridge with a quick like opinion that I think if you are like on a single night and you want to get the show, make sure you know when the show times are at, and just kind of make sure that you circle by that area as the show is starting to fill in around that time. So instead of getting there for 25 or 30 minutes, just try to get in there right as they're about to start. You might be on the end or something like that, but you can sneak in, because we've done that before.
They
where
squeeze them in there. I was just going to say, we have done that before.
It's just like one or two of us. I can walk in, say the show for whatever, say it's 8:30. I don't know if it is or not, but stroll up at like, 8:25 and just, if they're still letting people in, jump in. But then like say if you get blocked off, just, okay, cool. Circle back. Remember the next one, 9:45, 9:30, whatever. Do the same thing. If you're doing a single night, don't devote that 20 minutes, that crucial 25, 30 minutes or whatever, to get there early. But that's what I would do for the show. But so Seamus, I guess you can walk through. We did talk about stay and scream all the way through late night, but I guess you can kind of talk about single nights. If you're going to do it, I guess the two aspects are enjoyable versus hectic, I would say. So why don't you go single nights?
If you're not doing stay and scream and you are just doing the one night at the event, what it's going to come down to is I think you mentioned it, party size. That's going to be the biggest determining factor to how successful a single night can be, and how much I don't want to say fun, but how much more stressed it's going to be, depending on what your goal is. I think kind of what Nick was alluding to is like, if you plan on trying to get through everything in just a single open to close, minus stay and scream, if you want to get everything done, my first suggestion is don't go on a Saturday night. Then I know I said earlier that on a Saturday you can definitely get all of them done. You can, but
tough.
You really it's tough, but you really need to stay and scream, I think, on a Saturday. If you plan on doing everything. If you plan on getting there at open, you could do it, but it's not going to be easy, and you really have to have like a strategy in place and kind of a plan, and you're not going to have really any time to just kind of chill, take 5 minutes, grab a snack. Like you can probably get food like in between and while you're walking and stuff. Obviously they're going to have drink carts in the busiest lines. Not always. So don't bank on it. Like sometimes you'll be like, why is there not a drink cart somewhere in this line? Because for whatever reason, they don't do it. But occasionally, most of the time, you'll have a drink cart in line. So at least you can get a drink while you're waiting. But you're not going to have a whole lot of time to kind of just mosey through scare zones, hanging out together, just having a good old time if you're trying to get through everything. My suggestion, if you do only have a single night, is pick the houses you definitely want to hit and kind of prioritize them. So like, let's say this year, my priorities might be, I want to hit Goblin, I want to hit Museum, and I want to hit Triplets of Terror. Like those are my three big ones that I want to see. Now, I'm not saying that those are the ones Seamus wants to see. I'm just saying, as an example, those would be like your top three priority in your priority list. And then that way you can kind of have a good gauge in your head as to which ones I have to get through and which ones I'm not super bummed if I don't. And then obviously if I do, then it's just icing on the cake. And then from that point, you can kind of plan from where you go and then kind of piece them together. We would suggest trying to start at a certain part in the park. Usually it's in the back. So if you start towards the back where the back tents are, get those ones out of the way first and then work your way back towards the front. Generally the lines will kind of alternate with you, because usually everybody that comes in, they're going to head to those first houses up front immediately, especially since most of like the IPs or the big heavy hitters tend to be near the front of the park. Now, obviously last year was an outlier because The Last of Us was out back and that was the biggest wait. But generally your biggest waits are the ones at the front of the park. Usually the one in front of the stage or the ones going to Jimmy Fallon or around the back of New York tend to be the longest waits, but not every time. But generally that's usually how it works. So my suggestion would be, if you're a smaller party, you can, as long as you work at a pretty quick pace and you don't take too many breaks, you can usually get through 8 out of 10 houses. But again, I guess it's also going to depend on how busy the night is. So like I said, my biggest suggestion is pick an off night. So pick a Wednesday or a Thursday, a Sunday. Even Sunday is generally pretty good if you need a weekend. Now, obviously, if you have to do like a Friday or a Saturday night, just go in knowing you may not going to get through everything. But it's, if it's something you're willing to try, then it's definitely worth trying. But if you don't want to do it that way and you don't really care about doing everything, then at that point, yeah, I would just pick your, give me top 5, top 6 houses that you definitely want to do. Try to get through the bigger, longer lines first, and then work your way into towards the end of the night. Maybe try to hit that big IP near the end of the night. But you can, again, even without Stay and Scream, if you pick the right day of the week, you can usually get through everything.
Yeah. Again, it just comes down to that matter of, do you want to push it at
does.
the end? You know what I mean? Like it's a total preference game.
Right. And what we find too is the larger the group, sometimes the harder it is to make decisions. So like,
I need to go to the bathroom. I want to drink. I want to do this.
Right.
I want to go shop.
So I know a lot of people go to these events with big groups of friends, big groups of family, whatever, and they all want to do different things. If that's the case, have a plan to split up and say, listen, so and I want to go do this house, and let's try to get through everything. You guys don't want to do everything. So let's just kind of split up. We'll meet up again at some point in the middle of the night, grab a snack, grab some food, grab a drink or whatever. But don't be afraid to split your party up because generally.
Yep. Don't feel bad to do what you want to do.
Exactly. A lot of times people will, right. Because you don't want to miss a house that you're dying to do just because everybody else in the party doesn't want to do it.
Yeah. And you don't want to leave being like, man, I really wish I would have done this or this. And like, just do what you want to do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
y'all have phones. You can meet up.
Right.
Majority of us.
Agreed. Yep. No, I think that's a good way of attacking that single night. So let's get into the latter aspect of this, which is kind of fun. So we're going to kind of talk about each house. And I'll start this off with our over or under wait time guesses. So I'm going to go through each house and I have a number, number. Yeah. I mean, those are numbers. I'm an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
A time.
They are numeric.
Time is numbers. Time is numbers. Numbers are time. I have an estimated minute.
Oh man, my camera.
That I think might be a fun spot to debate whether it'll be over or under this. So let's just start with some of the IPs. So A Quiet Place. I set that at 89 minutes. Do you think it's going to be over that or under that on average? Now, at 8:30 on Saturdays, I'm sure it'll be over. But as a whole,
you said 89 or
89.
80?
So 89 minutes. So if you say over, if you're thinking 90 minutes, an hour and a half, you go for over. But if you don't think it's going to hit that hour and a half mark, you're going to go under essentially.
I'm thinking
I'll say over.
Me too.
Yeah, I think it's going to be over.
Yeah. Is it close? You think it's close? You think that hour and a half mark is pretty.
Yeah, I think so. I would not be surprised if this is like the Last of Us house and it just surprises everybody and it's always got a super high, long wait. I know we obviously just started. So when we get to Insidious, we can talk about this, but I think the general feeling is that Insidious is going to be at the busy house this year. But I have a feeling Insidious might be like the Exorcist was, where it really wasn't really ever that long. But we can talk about that one in a minute. But I definitely think this house is going to be on average on a busy night, hour and a half, maybe even closer to 2 hours.
I think the over is fair on that one as well. I set that just to kind of get us going here. So yeah, I think 90 minutes is a good estimate for that. So Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire. I set the over under at 99 minutes.
Ooh, lower.
You think it's going to be under that? You don't think it's going to hit that name brand for Ghostbusters? The people with the proton packs lining up, that lacto cooler?
No. I mean, with the first Ghostbusters house they did a few years ago, I mean, that was never super long.
I didn't think it was. That's what I thought too.
I think it was pretty long because I don't remember doing it too much.
I don't remember either. But I don't know if that was because we just chose not to do it. Because,
true.
again, you do it once or twice and you're like, all right, that was cute. That was Ghostbusters. Kind of like Beetlejuice was. Like, Beetlejuice was never really a super long wait either. Surprisingly enough.
I say like a 75er.
Yeah, I would say about an hour.
Okay,
max,
hour.
60, 65 minutes.
I'm not going to go. I was going to take the under as well, but I don't think I'm as under as you are. I do think it'll be around that 90 minutes. I think hour and a half is a
15?
good time frame.
Okay,
I think hour and a half to hour 45 is going to be
really
where this
I
is
definitely see this being either way. I could see like where there's a possibility where you're right. It's going to be a busy house, and there's also a possibility where it won't be. Whereas not The Last of Us, Quiet Place, I do not foresee that house being under an hour and a half on a busy.
Me either.
Like that house I just feel like that house is going to be that one where everybody's going for that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though everyone's like, well, how are they going to make it work? That's why I think it's going to be such a busy house, because everybody's going to be super like, how are they going to do this? Like, how is this going to look like? What's this going to be like?
Intrigued.
I just can't imagine. I can't imagine a night where it's going to be dead outside of maybe some mid-September night or late in the season when it starts to die down.
Yeah. All right. Well, you talked about it a little bit. Insidious. I gave it the same time, 99 minutes. 99 minutes. Do you think it's over?
I'm going to go under.
You're going to go under? So you think like hour and a half?
100 minutes is a long. I mean, that's a long wait. That's like hour 45 minute wait.
Hour
40 minutes.
I think it's going to be long. I do. I agree with you, Nick. I'd go with that.
Think right.
So you think over 99 minutes for Insidious?
Yes. Yeah.
I think so too. I would take the over on this one. I think on nights, I think this one will be the one that creeps to 2 hours. I think this will be like, especially it's just tricky because there is no clear cut number one headliner IP.
No,
right? Like there's not The Last of Us, there's not The Weeknd, there's not a Stranger Things. It's the three of these IPs are sort of kind of right neck and neck with each other. There's not one that
not a bad thing, honestly, because it might kind of disperse out the crowd.
Yeah, it'll even the crowd out a little bit. For me, I think my thinking is it's not Insidious the Red Door, it's just Insidious, right?
So it's like all of them. It's like kind of an original take.
Right. Yeah. And then A Last of Us is just like A Last of Us, but what's more relevant currently, if you think about it? Like A Last of Us just came out in theaters.
Quiet Place.
Yeah, right. Oh, sorry. Last of Us. Jesus Christ. A Quiet Place just came out in theaters this past, a month ago. I think that's more current in normie brains.
Yeah.
Than Insidious is necessarily. Obviously, with people like us in the community who do this all the time, who watch horror movies day in, day out, I think maybe we think Insidious more often just because we probably watch it more often, or we just enjoy the series. I think if they had specified that this was like Insidious the Red Door or something like that, maybe it'd be a little more popular going into it this season. But even my thought is maybe it gets longer as people kind of go do it and they realize how good it is, and maybe more people come in and they want to see that one specifically. Maybe the house the wait will come up, but I can't see this being more than like 70 minutes a night.
Yeah.
I think this is going to kind of be like the Exorcist was last year. I don't remember the Exorcist being incredibly long waits.
No,
and
towards
that movie
the end,
just come out.
Yeah, towards the end of the season, I feel like it crept up because people started.
It did because people were talking about it. It was definitely more of a discussion. I think the house was a lot better than people thought it was going to be, and I think that helped kind of push the numbers up a little bit. But I think that's kind of where Insidious is going to be, where I think people are going for A Last of Us Jesus, I keep doing it, for A Quiet Place, and Insidious is going to kind of take a backseat to that. That's just how I think it's going to happen. But again, I could be totally just talking out.
Let's start moving to our originals then. No, originals. Monsters is somewhere in the middle of this, but Monstros, the Monsters of Latin America. I set the time at 59 minutes.
60 minutes.
So
I'm gonna push.
I'm glad
you're gonna say it's
I'm gonna push. I think you're right on. 60 minutes is.
Well, if you're going 60, if you're going 60, you got to take the over.
All right, sorry. That's the way you did that. I'm sorry. So yes,
that's why I put them at those nines. That's why I put the nines in there. Yeah.
Not over, but over 60 minutes. I agree with the estimate.
Yeah. Jamie?
If it makes you feel better, I'll push it 59. How about that?
If I go there and Monstro's time limit says 59 minutes, I'm like, God damn it, Seamus.
Could you imagine?
He fucking knew somebody. He fucking knew the time guy. So, Jamie, what do you think? Over or under 59 minutes on average for Monstros?
Under.
You think
Which is
under?
just-
Really?
I'm only saying under because I feel like the spot that I think it's going to be in front of the Minions where Blood Moon was last year, I feel
Oh,
like that
good
spot
point.
falls curse to the shorter wait times for being decently good
Yeah.
houses, besides Hell Block. But for last year when they had Blood Moon was a really good house and it was always consistently like a 30-minute wait max. I don't
Yeah.
think we've ever honestly waited that long for, there was one time maybe, I think we waited a decent amount. But I feel like a lot of the houses there usually just kind of get left behind a little bit. But I think that the draw will be having it come from Hollywood. I think will attract people more. So I'm still gonna have to go with the under though. I think like a 45-minute wait.
You know, you
Nothing
make a
crazy.
good point.
Yeah.
You do make a
Yeah.
good point. I think that if it is in that weird location that they have where they kind of hide the entrance behind the store almost to the
Mhm.
side of the store
That's
anyways,
the only thing.
it definitely hurts it. And it's like the curse of that big queue. They always have that room
Huge.
set up with a massive queue
Like
and
the
they
back
never
room's
fill
queue.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go with Seamus. I think it's gonna be right at an hour, so I'm gonna have to take the over.
Okay.
But I
Okay.
see your side of it. I think this might break the curse though.
I hope
I think
so.
this one will kind of
The Parish
drop.
Town curse.
Yeah, I think it'll get there. Slaughter Cinema 2. I set it at 69 minutes.
I'll go over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is probably like the biggest normie
I'll go over.
original. I think
Almost
this
good.
is the one that everybody like got super pumped for. It was the first
think-
big original announcement.
Mm-hmm.
I
It was.
think it's
I think, yeah. First one.
I'm gonna
so I
take.
think that
I'm just gonna take the over as well. I was gonna put it at around 90. I think.
90.
Yeah,
I
I,
could see
think it might
that,
hit that
90.
hour and a half mark just because
Yeah,
of
I
the
mean, I could
brand
definitely
name of
see it. No, I agree
think-
with that. Sorry, am I delayed?
Oh no, you're good. Yeah.
Okay, all right. No, I agree with you. I think, I mean, there's definitely a chance it could be upwards of 90. It would probably be one of the highest weights that an original's had in a while because I'm trying to think of like an original the last couple of years that was really up there.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Well, even Darkest Deal got
Darkest
up
Deal.
there. Oddfellow a little bit.
Oddfellows probably did for a while. Yeah. So I guess it's possible. I mean, I definitely think it'll be over. Would you say 79?
I put it at
Or
69 minutes.
69. I think 70, 75 on a good night is what I was thinking, but I could see it being upwards of 90 on a busy night. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's got that, like you said, it's got that sequel.
It's got that brand. It's that
It's
Horror
got that
Nights brand name.
Yeah.
Goblin's Feast. I set this at 49 minutes. 49 minutes. What do you think, Jamie? For the over
Scared
under for
me.
Goblin's Feast.
Under.
You think it's gonna? So what do you think Goblin's Feast will like time wise average out as?
What did you say? I'm sorry, 49 minutes?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I'll stay like 30, 45-minute wait.
For Goblin, I'm going to go under.
under the 49.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think this will be average 35 minutes on a regular.
45.
So
Something crazy.
I'm gonna take the over.
Really?
I think it's
Okay.
gonna be around 50-55. I think it's right there though. I don't think this is like a barn.
Yeah.
burner,
50,
but
55.
yeah, so I put it at 49, so I got to take the over because I'm going up by 1 point
No, it's
or
true.
one, not a point, a minute.
I know.
I'm
Yeah.
using gambling terms, but
I mean, there were nights where Dragons was an hour. So,
That's
Yeah.
true. Well, that I get, but
no, and you're right. I don't know if like that's because of the nostalgia for the
Right.
ride. Like that just
Yeah,
made
but
that
still.
house a little bit more of a pull. But I
Mhm.
think people like this style. They want that
goblin?
goofy fantasy.
Mhm.
Well, not just goblins, but just like
ogres and stuff.
that style.
Orcs.
yeah, just that like Lord of the Rings, like that
Fantasy
haunted
kinda,
Lord of the
yeah.
Rings stuff. Like they want that type of feeling or that type of theme. So it will pull a certain group of people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think
Jimmy would
you know,
love the goblins.
not
house.
everybody. Oh, yeah, Jimmy would totally be on this. So Jimmy, if you're
Oh, yeah.
listening, we know for a fact you'd be like,
You
you know,
would
goblins all
love
night
this
long.
house.
But it's also
I want to go
I
through
mean,
again.
we forget that like it's not just our generation that comes to this. A lot of times it's younger generations too. Like even, if I bring Colin, he's 12. He wants to do the Goblin's house. He can't wait to do the Goblin's house. But I think it works for someone his age because it's not going to be as like, I don't think it's going to be as hardcore as some of the other houses are. Like,
I can relate to that.
With like Exorcist last year, that house went pretty hard. That was a hard house for even adults, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas Goblins, it's going to be kind of like Dragons. It's going to be fun, somewhat goofy, definitely fantastical. So I think it works for a certain group of people. For certain
fantastical? People. I like that.
Yeah, there's no
word. It's a word,
no
right?
like
I don't know.
Yeah,
no,
there's
I
no
like
realism. There's no realism in the house, right? It's not something.
No, and it's
kid's
again,
gonna be like afraid of that.
As a younger, if I was younger, I feel like how you were saying, Colin's 12, but being a 12-year-old when I used to go to the event, if they had a house called Goblin's Feast, I'd be like, oh, I could do this house. This can't be that bad. So I feel like it does draw that more.
It gives off that vibe. Now, I mean, it might be harder edged than I expect it to be, but
imagine it's fucking crazy.
Right, I know it's like the goriest house there, like just fucking goblins like eating people. I mean,
it pops out. He's like, "Give me your fucking eyes!"
Feast. I mean, so they're definitely eating people.
I'm gonna lick your fucking bones dry, you little fucker.
Right?
Get out of here.
When did they let him start cussing?
Yeah, right. Like, oh my god. All right, let's move along. Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodline. I set the over/under at 89 minutes. I know I'm cutting them close this year. I'm getting good with it.
I know. 89.
I'm gonna over.
I can't do the math because you put these weird numbers.
I'm gonna over, but one of those deals where it's like over at 90. Like I think it's gonna be like basically a push. I think on a busy night, monsters can get crazy, and I think it's just got that. It's got that draw, and especially now, everybody expects it to be a good house because everybody loves the monsters houses. Like I don't think there's ever been one that they would have considered a miss. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously for certain people, for certain ones, maybe not as much as others. Like obviously, you have the king monster hater here who can appreciate that people like it. So just because I don't like it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a bad house. So I think this one will probably have a pretty big draw, especially since they're doing something different. It's not going to be the typical Frankie versus Dracula. It's going to be, we get new characters, a new story, a different take on like the Van Helsing story. So I think this one will probably be pretty good, and it's gonna draw a number of people. So for the pseudo IP, pseudo original, I think this house will be one of the busier ones.
Yeah, and you get that introduction of a sort of new character to this whole Universal Monsters lore with the Van Helsings, a name that really hasn't been in any of the previous iterations. So it's a nice little breath of fresh air, even though there's a lot of similarities in this house of stuff we've seen before, whether that's, the Brides of Dracula or the Bride of Frankenstein. And, we're getting a she-wolf and a Nox on the Moon, I believe it is. So we're getting some pieces that we are familiar with, but we're not just rehashing the same old. It's a little bit of a different.
Yeah. And it's a versus that makes a little bit more sense too.
Yeah, there's a story.
Like, I'm not a big fan of like the mashing monsters together just to do it, but this one, at least it feels like there's a reason, like some motivation for it. So I don't know. Yeah.
I too would take the over. I think it's going to sit around that 100 to 110 minutes. I think it's going to go over the 90 for sure.
Really?
I do. The monster houses are just on a stretch. So 89 minutes. What are you saying then, Jamie?
I think it's going to be like a 75. Or if I remember correctly, I feel like the most I got,
under?
I would only, or the under, I'm sorry. I feel like the most I would say that I saw monsters get up to last year was 85. So I would say it would probably go in that range. Hour and a half, hour 45, or maybe. I don't think it's going to be nothing too crazy like that, though, honestly. I feel like the Monsters House is really hit or miss with the wait times. I feel like in past years, we've seen them be consistently like at an hour and a half. Sometimes they're at 45 minutes when we see them, and we can get a pretty quick run in it. But it really just depends. But I'll take the under for this one.
Yeah. So the museum, Deadly Exhibits. I set this at 59 minutes. What do we think about that? Is this going to the hour mark consistently?
No, under.
Think under? Jamie, what do you think on the museum?
My heart says under, but my
Okay.
head says over, or
Your head, your brain.
whatever. I was gonna say your head and your heart, but I feel like this one. I don't know. I feel like it might be that one that kind of surprises people, and I feel like people are going to be curious about it, and it might have a little bit more of a weight. Is the only thing. I think maybe like because what did you say? I'm sorry, 59 minutes.
59, yeah.
No, you know what? I'm gonna go with the under. Probably like a 45er, 30, 45er.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
So I'm doing
40
I'm gonna
40
do a
minutes.
weird thing.
Okay.
September, I'm calling the under. October, I'm calling the over. I think we're gonna have something
okay.
like this,
I like
like
that. I like
Exorcist,
that.
where I think it will gain the traction,
Mhm.
but halfway through the season, sort of like kind of like
I
we said
could
with
get down
Exorcist
with
and
that.
Blood Moon. It's sort of Blood Moon and Exorcist to an extent, because Exorcist, while it had the name of the Exorcist, it was the Exorcist Believer, and at the
Mhm.
time it was an unknown. So people didn't really, I don't think they gravitated towards either of those immediately because they were pretty vague.
Yep.
But then once the word got out that like, no, these are sort of like can't miss houses, it the people were starting to buy stock in that one. It started going up a little bit. So I think I broke the rules, but I also made the rules, so I'm allowed to do that. So I'm taking the
Hey.
under for September and over for October. Suck it.
I like that. That's good.
Triplets of Terror, 49 minutes.
Over.
You think over?
Mhm.
49.
I'm thinking like a solid 60, honestly.
Trying to not let my bias
Nothing more.
affect it. But I think she's right. I think this will be over.
Okay, so
Not by much, but it'll be over.
I
Like
was
60
under.
minutes.
I was thinking 45.
I'm only saying this because I have pretty high hopes for it, but without seeing spoiler-free or with seeing spoiler-free little like reviews of like the unmasking tour without seeing pictures and stuff like that, I feel like a lot of people were saying that they're going to be surprised by Triplets of Terror, which I already kind of figured because I was looking forward to this house anyways, but I think it'll be like at a solid hour.
I think people like a slasher house, even if
Yeah.
it's not necessarily like a movie slasher. It's
Mhm.
I think people they desire something like this. There's always going to be the gore hounds that need a gory house, and I think this is going to be that outlet for them. So I can see this one being a pretty big wait. I don't think it'll be super long, but hour on a busy night.
Yeah, I'm just stuck around that 45-minute mark. I don't know why. I'm just kind
I could
of.
see that though too.
I can see
could
that
be
happening
wrong.
too.
I could be wrong.
I mean, it's not at the level of Hellblock, but I could see it being that walk on almost.
Yeah, I just think
on
it's
a slow
such.
night.
It's like the most.
It depends. I think it's going to depend on
guess.
like. I think it's going to depend on word of mouth after those first few runs. Like Jamie's saying, like if people are starting to talk a little bit after the tour, saying this one might surprise some people. Maybe initially it'll start with a longer wait, but if it's not delivering on what they promise, then the lines won't stay that way. But if it starts to like wow some people, the lines could get pretty long. Because if you haven't noticed, there's a trend. Usually what happens is like houses will start a certain way and then end the season a different way.
Mhm.
As the word gets out that, hey, this house is amazing. Hey, this house isn't as good as we thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And then for our final house, Major Sweets Candy Factory, 59 minutes.
You're such a bitch.
This is how they work.
Under.
You're going under. Okay.
Over.
50 minutes.
50? All right. The Fast and the Furious location is tarnished
I think
enough.
that hurts it.
I think it hurts it too.
Shit.
In the sense that it always makes it really long. I feel like I don't know. I think it's going to be over. I think it's going to be at least an hour wait. A sequel house to a zone that people have wanted to see.
A very popular zone, yeah.
Yes.
I think I'm going to go with Jamie. I take the over because I think it's at that 60 to 70 minute mark. I think it's just over. I think we're edging it a little bit, but that's where I think. So those are our under over wait time guesstimates. So Jamie, why don't you take us and walk us through these houses one more time? And we're going to kind of just, again, similar to what we just did, you're going to give whether you think the house is going to underperform or overachieve. And we'll kind of discuss each house.
Okay. So I don't have any of these in particular order, but I did start out with the IP houses first. Do you want me to tell you my guess first, or would you guys
Yeah.
like to guess it?
Yeah, we'll do the same thing that I just did, where you say the
Okay.
house, and then we'll kind of give our opinions as well, whether we
Mhm.
think it's correct or incorrect.
So first we have Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and I have that this house will underperform. What do you guys think?
I second that.
You think so?
So I
Yep.
think it's going to overachieve because for me, my expectations aren't that high. So it really doesn't have to do much to kind of go over my, exceed my expectations or quote unquote overachieve. But I do think being that it's Frozen Empire, I think people are kind of expecting less. And I think they'll be surprised. So I think it'll overperform by a little bit.
And
But
the
that's
thing,
only because I have lower expectations.
I feel like the
I think
creature.
them.
Go ahead, Seamus.
No, I was just gonna add that I think hamstringing themselves to just like to the new movie, I think is gonna hurt them. I think specifically trying to focus on Frozen Empire isn't gonna help. I think because unfortunately, I think, and whether this is right or wrong, I think a lot of the community like they have a special place in their hearts for like certain series and certain franchises and certain movies, and they don't necessarily like it when they keep pumping out sequel after sequel, or they keep trying to like do that nostalgia bait and get you into the theater with the like last Jurassic World movie, this last couple Ghostbusters movies, where it's like, hey, remember this, remember that, that whole member berries thing. I think I think a lot of people don't necessarily dig that as much as studios would like to believe, and I think focusing solely on that movie might hurt it a little bit, and I think that's where it's going to underperform. I don't think it's going to be like a bad house. I don't think it's going to
Right.
I don't think any house is going to be bad necessarily. I don't think it's going to be as popular as they expect, and I think it's not going to really hit that thing people want when they think Ghostbusters. That's why like the first one they did really worked, because it was like, hey, this is the Ghostbusters that you remember. This is Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Like this is like 80s goodness. This one, you might have a bunch of people that like it and then a bunch of people that don't. And I think if we're talking personal opinions, I think it's gonna I don't have very high expectations for it to begin with, but I don't think it's gonna be like anything. It's not gonna blow my expectations out of the water, but I have been proven wrong before. So
I feel like that was my argument though too, that I feel like the reason I think it's gonna underperform is because it's tough when you have it just based solely on the new movie. Like the monster in the movie is really cool. Like I feel like there's a lot of big like larger than life like set designs that they could use for the house. So I feel like for those who have seen the movie, I feel like they kind of want to, or they already know what they want to see in the house. And I feel like if it's not like that, that they're going to be like, oh, they might as well have just done the original Ghostbusters to begin with. So at least with that, you kind of know what you're getting out of it. And if you had your hopes kind of high for it or kind of low for it in that case, I mean, at least you'll see some nostalgic scenes and stuff you recognize versus with this, it's kind of hard for people to relate as much, I guess, since it's not based on the original. Okay. So for our second house up, we have A Quiet Place. And for this one, I'm kind of on the same how you were feeling about Ghostbusters, Nick, but I put overachieve for this one, actually.
Okay, I agree with that one. I do think that this is going to overachieve. I think they're going to. I really hope that all the bells and whistles and tricks that they try to do with this house pay off, because I think they're definitely they're putting themselves up to the test for this house. They're going to try some really wacky stuff, and whether it works or not, time will tell. But I do think they're going to nail this one. So I do think overachieve is correct.
It'll be really cool to see the ASL and the different kind of techniques, like you said, that they're going to use for this. So I'm intrigued, even though I was hating on it. I'm still interested to see what it was, and I think it'll kind of heighten my expectations for it a little bit.
yeah, this is going to be the boring one. I think we all agree that this house is going to probably overachieve. I'm probably more. Maybe I'm the most hyped on this one out of the three of us. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I feel like this is the one where it will overachieve, in my opinion. But they need to make sure they nail this house, because if they don't nail it and it just feels like you know a bunch of alien puppets and there's not a whole lot of uniqueness to it, then it could hurt it. I think if it's too by the books, like, oh, here are the monsters in it, even though it's not really what the movie's about. It's what makes this one hard. It's because it's like The Last of Us, where the scariest parts of The Last of Us weren't so much the monsters as it was what humans do to humans, and it's really hard to make that story, convey that story in a haunted attraction.
Mhm.
This one could struggle with that, where it's hard to convey the true fear of that movie without, I guess, without having the capability, like with what you get with a movie, where it's hard to do. It's hard to do that even in a movie, but with a house like this, where the idea is you have to be quiet. Like I've said it before, it's going to be hard to necessarily achieve that effect, but I hope they pull it off. I really do.
Mm-hmm. I do too.
Especially considering, like, I feel like this house is getting a lot of
like pushback. People aren't super happy about it.
So I'm pulling for it. I hope that it does well, because I'm interested to see them try different things or take properties where you wouldn't necessarily expect them to go. So we'll see.
All right. For our third house, we have Insidious the Further. And kind of obvious, but I put overachieve for this one as well. But I feel like I put that not because I'm biased to it. I do think it'll be a cool house, but I do like that they're taking the route of doing the further. And obviously, I've talked about it on past episodes before. I love hodgepodge houses and scare zones and a random assortment of things, especially when it's something from the same franchise, seeing different scenes you could recognize from multiple of movies or different characters from the multiple films. I think it'll be a really cool house. I think it'll be our scarier house, next to Triplets as well. But yeah, what do you guys think about Insidious the Further?
I think it is going to neither overachieve nor underachieve. I think it's going to do exactly what people expect it to.
Okay.
I think people like you said, Jamie, because they're focusing solely on not solely, but they're focusing mostly basically on the further and that aspect of the films. I think you're going to get exactly what people want to get from it. I don't think that they're gonna. It's one of those movies or one of those properties. It's gonna be hard for them to do wrong. Like I think it's pretty easy to nail a house like this, because all you really have to do is give people the effect of being in the movie and make and scare them, and that's really what you really need to accomplish with this house. There's really no special tricks you got to do, and that's what people want from it. It's not like people are expecting this to be anything different than what they would get with a traditional haunted house. So I think it's going to do exactly what it sets out to do, and I don't think anybody's going to be super wowed by it, but I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed by it either.
Yeah, this one's
the cheap way to go out. I'm a fence sitter, but I can't help it.
This one's a little bit trickier because my expectations are a little bit higher for this one. So it's like I'll lean towards where you're at, Jamie. I will say overachieve. But I am more where Seamus's head's at, where it's like, I think it'll kind of do what we're expecting it to do, which I think the expectations are this is going to be the scary house, and Universal gets to put their own, not necessarily their full creative swing on it, but it's not necessarily based on a movie. It's just based on an aspect of the movie that's already there. So I'll go with you. I'll say overachieve.
All right. I'll take it. But Seamus, I do like your answer too, because I am kind of on the fence about that too. But all right. Up at number 4, we have Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. So for this one, I was kind of on the fence about between over and underachieve, because although these aren't very prominent characters that we see too often, so maybe not as many people will know the story behind them, I do really like that they're choosing the female empowerment. I think it's really nice. I think it's going to be a beautiful house. Nonetheless, I think it's going to look great. I think the story is going to somewhat flow through the house, but I'm afraid that it's going to get lost. So I think I'm going to have to do underachieve. I'm afraid that it's going to be like the Monsters House. Sorry, Legends Collide. I feel like it's going to kind of have a lot going
A little
on.
jumbled up.
Yes.
Okay. Seamus, why don't you take this one? Because I still gotta kind of gather my thoughts on
This
where
one
I'm
was,
gonna lean
that's
towards
what I'm
this
saying.
one.
This one I'm saying. And I don't think it's
don't
going to be a bad house.
Yeah, I don't disagree with Jamie. My thing is I think it will underachieve only because it has a lot to live up to. I think last year, I think as much as people will blow smoke up Legends Collide's ass, I think a lot of people liked last year's house. I think Unmasked took what they do traditionally with monsters, but there was more cohesion. There was more reason for all these characters to be in the same location at the same time. The story made more sense without necessarily knowing it back and front. And the characters were varied, and you get to kind of experience some different things. And I think just, and again, this could be my own personal bias leaking in, because I think last year was really good, but I do think Unmasked is going to be a hard follow for any Monsters House going forward. So to make the decision to change a lot of the traditional characters and do a lot of a very different thing this year could work in its favor. It could also hurt it too. I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's going to depend on how the community feels, or what the opinions are as it goes. Because I don't think it'll be a bad house either. I think it'll be fun. It'll be interesting. It'll be nice to see a different take on some traditional characters. But I think, much like Legends Collide, I think there could be too much going on. And another one of those, hey, there's a battle between these characters for really no reason. Even though I have said I think there's more motivation here than there was in Legends Collide, but I don't know. I guess we'll have to come to find out. I can't see it. I can't see it outperforming the last year's or even the year before. I just don't.
I think to just argue the contrary, I guess I'll just go overperform just because. I just do think that they are on such a hot streak for monster houses, and I think because it is, I know it's not necessarily a story we saw before because there's a lot of different components this time, but because we saw Bride and all that stuff, my expectations are a little bit lower. So I think because of that, I'll go overperform because, again, much like I said with Ghostbusters, I'm not necessarily expecting a lot from this house, not to like show my hand, but I really don't know what to expect. And I do think that with Legends Collide, I thought the story was jumbled, but I did enjoy the house, but I thought Unmasked brought it to that next level. And I do think that they're on that incline. So I think they're going to take what they've done the last 2 years and what they've learned and kind of reapply that to what worked in the Bride house. They're going to take away stuff that didn't work, and then they're going to just kind of keep pushing up forward. So I'm going to go overperform for, or overachieve for Universal Monsters this year.
Okay. I like that answer. So next up we have Museum Deadly Exhibits. And I unfortunately have underperformed for this house. Maybe I'm just being a hater, but I don't know. Man, the museum stuff
I think this one
doesn't interest
overperforms
me like that. You think so? Okay.
I think this is this year's Darkest Deal.
Really?
This year's Puppet Master.
Really?
I really do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Seamus literally just took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say
Oh,
overperform.
man.
I think this is going to be that dark horse.
Am I museum's number one hater?
I think this one is.
I don't think you're the number one hater. I just think that.
And I'm not saying like I'm like the number one museum fanatic, but I do think that it's going to find its place. And I think people are going to really.
It's not like Blood Moon was last year for me. Like when I heard Blood Moon, I was like, that's it. That's what I want.
That's my house.
It's definitely not that for me this year, but I do think it's one of those houses that, like maybe less like Puppet Theater, but more like Darkest Steel, or even more like the underground one there.
Descendants of Destruction.
Descendants of Destruction. I think that's another one where you heard the name and you're like, eh. But then you did it and you're like, oh shit, wow, they actually knocked this one out of the park. So I think this is one of those ones where it's like, it sounds like it's going to be but it'll actually really nail what it's going for and knock it out of the park.
Mhm.
And I think just the generic museum name is kind of what people are like, oh my god, really? Like, this kind of sounds goofy.
Yeah,
or,
where's it go? Yeah.
I don't
where's
wanna
this
go
going
to
to go?
school. I don't
Right. I don't
wanna
want to learn things.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, we have Major Sweets, our jolly old fellow, back again to greet us.
This
For-
one could be a hot take.
Not really.
Go ahead.
I have
Go ahead.
overachieved for this one.
Okay.
So not really much of a hot take. And I say
Okay.
this because it is, as I mentioned previously, a returning scare zone turned to house. I think it's a big deal. I think since we're so used to what seeing was in the Major Suite scare zone, being outside, being different, not having too much prop setups other than like the judge's booth and the big floats in the middle and stuff like that, I feel like it's going to be a completely different setting and different atmosphere inside Major Sweets Candy Factory. And I feel like since we don't really know what to expect, I feel like that's why I put overachieve for this one, because I know kind of what I'm getting the gist of, but just because we saw such a different atmosphere and such a different setting outside from what we're going to be seeing inside the actual house, that I kind of really don't know what to expect. So I think that excites me more. What do you guys think?
So, man, I'm
So for
very
those same reasons,
yeah.
I think it underachieves.
Really?
I think, and this is why I said this might be a hot take.
Mhm.
I'm hoping for this more than most. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's me being hyperbolic. But I do think that this house has a strong chance to underwhelm. I think that they have in the back of their heads what the scare zone was like and enjoyed what the scare zone did, but this house may not be able to match that same type of magic or energy that the scare zone had,
Mhm.
because it's a house. And I don't know if that's because the theme doesn't work as an enclosed attraction. Maybe it worked better as out in the open. We have, that outdoorsy, folksy Halloween vibe with the kids done in costumes and like the hay and the mayor and all this stuff. Like, you felt like you were in Halloween Town.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're going to get that same feeling with this house, especially if it's going to be a factory setting.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's going to be too different than what people remember the scare zone being.
Mhm.
Because if you think about like Fear, like, no, sorry, I almost just said Fear and Beer. For
Nice.
Pier, where like I think they were able to match what the scare zone was in the house, is kind of why that house worked and it was so memorable, because it kind of felt you matched that feeling. I don't know if you're going to be able to match the same feeling, so I don't know if it's going to affect it poorly. I think it'll be good. It'll be a good house, but is it going to be one of those deals where like the only reason it matches is because of the name, and you're going to have Mr. Sweets in it?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I really am looking forward to this house. I love the aesthetic, but I think I have to take underperform until I walk in there,
Mhm.
based solely on the location. I just don't know how they set up this Fast and Furious. I don't know if it's different from last year's, but this location has worked. It worked for Black Phone. Freaky was whatever, and Chucky was an absolute hot mess. So the location is really tough to play with. So I just need to, until I can get in there and see how it's laid out. For me, factory setting, I view big, wide open spaces, and that's not what they have to work with there. It's
Mhm.
more tight quarters, claustrophobic. That's why Black Phone for me worked very well in that location.
Mhm.
But, and if you said this was in a soundstage, I'd say overperform, or overachieve. But because it's there, I think I have to go under, just until I walk in there and see what it looks like.
All right.
But I'm
Fair
excited for this
enough.
house. I can't wait for this house.
But I'm excited. No, I am too. I get that though. It was tough. This one's hard. So next up, we have Triplets of Terror. You guys could probably guess what I have for this one too.
I can.
Overachieve. No, I do. Kind of same thing with this one. I've been good. I haven't looked at any spoiler pictures from the Unmasking the Tour,
That's
even though
surprising.
it's very surprising. You don't know how hard it's been because I, for one, usually don't mind spoilers. But when it's something like this, I'm like, damn, like it's pretty close to the event. Like I'm going to see this and I'm not going to forget like 2 months from now, like how I usually am when I see spoilers for something. But yeah, so I've seen people talking about it. It's really hyping me up even more. I I just really don't know what to expect other than that little design we've gotten from the house announcement. I mean, I think this is something that really interests me. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I do like this genre of horror. I know we've talked about it before, and I've obviously talked a lot about it before because I'm basic and like the same things. But I think this will overachieve for me, at least. And I hope it does for other people too. Because, like I said, some of the comments I've been seeing have been pretty positive about this house so far. And that was just for Unmasking. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I will also go with you. I will say this will overachieve.
Really?
Yep,
Surprised.
I think the expectations are a little bit lower for it. I've heard, like you said, I've heard nothing but good things. I've stayed away from spoilers. Thankfully, so far as much as I can, I've seen little pictures pop up, but I just have
And I'm like,
scrolled past pretty quick. But yeah, I do think that this one. I don't think this is going to be complete dark horse. Like I thought, Museum is comparable to the Darkest Deal. But I think this will be a fan favorite. I do think
okay.
that this is going to be loved by the community. So I'm going to go with overperform.
Nice.
I'm going to be boring and do what I did before. And I'm going to say this house will do neither overperform nor underperform. I think this
I
house
like
is going
that
to do
answer.
exactly what it sets out to.
Yep.
I keep forgetting. We could pick it.
And well, I don't know if we can pick it, Jamie. I just do it.
I just am.
Whatever.
We make
just
the
gonna
rules
do it.
around here, Seamus. This is
So-
our thing.
So yeah, I can't imagine this house like being like it's not gonna be like, wow, it's like something really new. Like we never would have expected that to happen. I think it's
Yeah.
gonna be exactly what I think it's gonna be,
Mhm.
and it's gonna be fine. Like that was a
Yeah.
fine house. I'm okay with that house. Not super wowed by it, but I'm not disappointed by it either. I think it's gonna do exactly what it's supposed to do. You need that hillbilly horror gore fest house, and this is what this is gonna be.
It's going to scratch that itch.
Right. And I could be wrong, and it might do a lot of different things that I'm not expecting. And I will appreciate that if it does, but I don't think it will. I think it's gonna be in a lane and it's gonna stay in that lane.
I like it. Fair enough answer, Seamus. You stick to your guns. All right. So up next, we have Slaughter Cinema 2. Which I think some might be a little upset with my take on this. So I did put underachieve for Slaughter Cinema 2. Only because I'm worried with the
It's got a lot to
first
live up to.
house, it's a lot to live up to for one. For the first house iteration that they had, I thought the movies were really cool, really creative, really enjoyed them. With the two that we've gotten the sneak peek of so far, I think are very cool, very interesting. But it just leaves me wondering, like, man, they're really showcasing these two. Like, I wonder if these are going to be like the coolest two ones in the houses, or if all the other ones are going to be as noticeable or notable as these, something like that. So, and I don't know if I think you guys need this. I'd never got to see the first Slaughter Cinema house. So
I didn't
this
either.
is, yeah. So
No?
no,
You didn't
no,
go
I
that
think
year?
that was, what year
28?
was it? 28. I think I had went once with you that year. I didn't go at like I didn't get a frequent fear pass or anything that year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like those,
That was
like
the
those
first year I was in Florida, and I
years
didn't do it
from
either.
like 15 to like 2018. I feel like I'd only went to the event like a couple times each year. I never got the frequent fear and stuff like that until like we all started like getting together and doing it. But yeah, so I never got to see the first iteration of Slaughter Cinema. I went to the event year, but I did not do that house that year, I don't think, or at least as I do not recall. And I'm pretty sure I would remember it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see this house. I could see it underperforming, but I don't think so. I think this house is going to overperform. I think this house is going to be probably one of the more popular houses this season,
Mhm.
and I think people are really expecting something, and I think that they're going to deliver on it. I do think that.
Yeah.
I think this is. I think they know what they have with this. They've done it before once in the past, and they know how to. They know how to reach that.
Please the peoples.
Yeah, they know how to make to find that thing that would work in a house like this. They know how to come up with really cool ideas for B movies. So I don't think just because they've only shown us 2 that they don't have anything else. I think that just means they're holding on to their best cards.
You think
still.
so? I hope that's
Yeah.
the case.
Yeah,
I do.
I'm very excited for this house. But this house probably makes me the most nervous out of all of them. And I'm gonna side with Jamie on this one. I'm nervous that it's going to underperform a little bit just because of the height of expectations compared to the original. It's look at the newest Star Wars trilogy versus the other Star Wars trilogy. It just it's
a lot to live up to.
Yeah, can you nail that shot again?
It's like when
you called your home run shot and you hit the first home run into the upper deck. Then the second one comes around, you point again. Are you going to go back to back? I don't know. Time will tell.
It's like when they did Scary, and I think they had a lot to live up to with Scary.
Yes, yeah, similar, very similar,
same idea.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're getting down to our last 2. Goblin's Feast.
Interesting.
I'm gonna say overperform.
I did too.
I know you haven't even. I don't even given your answer yet, but I'm just gonna go out of my way and say, I think this house will be better than people are expecting. I know it's weird hearing that from me, but
it's gonna be a lot of browns and greens and muted colors that are all gonna mix in and blend well together. And I think the characters are gonna be shielded in these evergreen lush forests. And I really think they're gonna get me with the jump scares, man. I really do. I don't know. It does sound like the stupid kind of goofy.
I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be stupid fun
house, but I think
it's gonna be. I think I think there'll be something in it for everyone. I think you'll get something out of it.
Excited for goblins than I am for museum.
Okay.
That I'm not sure I can side with. I can't
You're like, I don't know about all that.
That's a take. Why didn't you say that? Why didn't you do that for our... You should have saved that for the hot take episode.
Right, you should have saved that for hot takes.
That's a good one, right? Just
is this released before or after hot takes? Because we recorded it before. But...
This will come up before our hot take episode.
So she didn't use this. It's a spoiler alert. She didn't use this as a hot take in the hot takes episode.
No, I did not.
Let's make it 3 for 3. Let's go overachieve for this house.
Nice.
I think so as well. I could see that happening. I think this is going to be a very fun house. Yep, the Green Goblin. I'm going to wear. I'm going to wear a Willem
just one of those. Like, hey, we got nothing to do right now. What do you want to do? Let's just grab a beer and go through goblins.
I'll get my face painted in Iowa as the Green Goblin before we go.
Yeah. I'm sure the fucking Green Goblin can afford some more water.
This one, I mean, I won't lie. This one would be probably. This one might actually be fun. Like end of the night, you've been drinking all night,
exactly,
and you just like stumble through it. Like this one might actually be pretty fun.
Mm-hmm. I sound like them.
On the situation you're in, right?
Yeah,
fuck you ugly motherfuckers.
Kids club you in the head. Boop.
Yeah, they boop. Yeah, I could see this. I could see this one overperforming based off of the people. I think the cast is going to make or break this one for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what do we got? What's our last one up now?
Our last house we have up is Monsters of Latin America. And this one...
Go ahead, sorry.
No. It's okay. No, I'm
so sorry. I can't wait. I can't possibly wait.
You sound like me, Seamus. Overachieve. No, I do think it's going to overachieve.
Oh, 100%. I think this house is going to be... This low key could be House of the Year.
This could have some very cool puppetry work.
Was House of the Year for Hollywood, I believe.
It was. I was just going to say that. Yep, I think so. It's going to have very cool character designs, very cool setting, a storyline you could follow. People have already been following it since Hollywood. Like you said, Nick, it was House of the Year over there. Very, I don't want to say a coveted house, but a very well-renowned house. Very enjoyable. Yeah. I think it's something that we've been wanting to see. We've seen urban legends. Would you call Bigfoot?
Yeah, chupacabras.
Like urban legends. We've seen some of them coming about, but I think this is fun that it's going to kind of be a compilation house, and especially since it's some of the monsters that we haven't seen before and some of the creatures we haven't seen before. So it'll be kind of cool getting to learn their backstory more so, because if they do it how they had it at Hollywood from videos I've seen, it'll kind of go story by each different creature, which I think is fun, kind of like leading you through their little area.
Right. And
with
what we've
your like
seen,
crypt keeper kind of tour guide, who
Yeah.
enters you from the beginning. So I think it's going to be a really cool house, man. I'm really excited for this one.
yeah, from what we've seen as far as releases are concerned with this one too, I think the monsters look awesome. So
Sickening. I
I
love
think
it.
this is definitely, yeah, it's gonna be.
Mhm.
I think it's really gonna wow some people.
And I hope it don't disappoint me, but I mean, I kind of know it's already
I
coming.
don't think it will.
How's it going?
I don't think it will.
Yeah, right.
I'm pretty confident this house is gonna be
Yeah.
my favorite or one of my favorites.
I feel like this year we're all very like collectively kind of feeling mutual about how the houses are.
Maybe.
Like I
Our
feel
hype
like
list, our hype lists will definitely tell the story because
Yeah.
I think that there might be a couple that we're different on,
Mhm.
but you're right. I think for the most part,
more than last year.
they'll somewhat match up.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll just conclude this with agreeing as well. I think these last two are. I think this one will
Yeah?
overachieve as well. Yeah, I do. I think we're gonna take what Hollywood did and we're gonna Orlandoize it and we're gonna
Mhm.
make it better.
Yeah,
I
I don't think it won't be a carbon copy of what Hollywood got.
No,
and no shade. Well, a little bit of shade, but like we'll just do it better, like they just do.
No. Be
Orlando
nice.
does
I
it
like
better.
I want be nice. I want to go to Hollywood.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely want to go too, but just from okay, yes. So I guess I can't necessarily say that I haven't gone there, but just from what everybody says
Mhm.
and people that I trust, like Orlando just does it better. They just do.
Mhm.
It's more our event,
Mhm.
and Hollywood still does a great job, but it
Mhm.
is, two kind of different beasts a little bit.
Mhm. Yes.
It is.
All right. Well, that was our how-to episode. That was our wait times. That was our underperform, overachieve. We are in the midst of our 1 week until HHN Podathon, where we kind of do stuff a little bit different. Our typical episodes, we do some call-ins and we do some what movies did you watch this week. Obviously, I probably have mentioned this on one of the episodes that you're listening to already before, but we're kind of doing our own thing on this week. So each episode is to the point. We're in and out. We get to our topic, and that's that.
Yes.
So get ready for tomorrow's episode. Tomorrow's episode is a fun one. That is it's our HHN Fantasy Draft. We got Jamie, we got Nick, we got Seamus, we got Johnny Bronto from Haunt Scene, we got Michael from Hallowed Thrills, we got Adrian from Lost TV. We got a lot.
It was very fun.
That is an episode. That's an episode you do not want to miss. But until next time, which is tomorrow, this is Nick.
This is Seamus.
This is Jamie.
Happy haunts.
Cursed. To the death cursed.
It's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare. And again, I would just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.